Hey students, in this short video I'm going to explain how to factor the GCF of polynomials. Let's start with a simple problem. Let's say we have 3x plus 15. You look at the polynomial and you ask yourself, what do these two terms have in common as a factor? So they both have the numbers of 3 and 15. 3 and 15 have the number 3 in common. 3 can be divided into both. So we're going to use 3 as a GCF here. X is a variable here, but not on this term, so we cannot factor an x. When we decide this is the GCF, we put the parentheses, and now you ask yourself, what do you distribute that 3 with to get that 3x plus 15 as an answer? So 3 times x will give you 3x, and then 3 times 5, positive 5, will give you that 15. So as you get the GCF, you now have a factor to multiply times another factor to get this polynomial as an answer. And this is the process of factoring the GCF. Let's take a look at another problem. 2x to the fourth power plus 6x to the third power minus 4x squared. In this one, you have 3 terms, and all 3 have coefficients, 2, 6, and 4. 2, 6, and 4 have a common factor of 2. They're all even numbers. So we're going to use 2 as a GCF for the coefficients. But now let's look at the variables. X to the fourth, x to the third, x squared. All 3 terms have a variable of x. And the highest amount of x's that we can divide by is x squared. They all have at least 2 x's that we can remove. So that concludes getting the GCF from that polynomial. Now let's talk about what is the other factor. 2x squared times what will give you this as an answer. So 2x squared times 1, 2 times 1 gives you 2, so we're not going to put a 1 here as a coefficient, but x squared times x squared will give you x to the fourth power. Next, how do we get 6x to the third power? 2 times 3. And x squared times x will give you x to the third power. Last, we have negative 4x squared. So 2 times negative 2 gives you negative 4. And x squared times nothing gives you x squared. So that concludes the process of factoring this polynomial. Let's try another example. Negative 10a to the third power plus 5a squared minus 15a. This again has 3 terms, and 10, negative 10, 5, and negative 15 all have the number 5 in common as a greatest common factor. Now the letter a is in also all 3 terms, so a needs to be taken out or divided by. But this one has 3 a's, 2 a's, 1 a. So the most we can get out of all 3 terms is just 1 a. All right, so 5a times negative 2 gives you negative 10, and 8 times a squared gives you a to the third power. 5 times 1 gives you 5, so we're just going to put a plus sign, no number 1. And then 8 times a is a squared. And then the last part is negative 15a, so 5 times negative 3 gives you negative 15, and a times nothing gives you that a. So that's how we get the factors that you multiply to get this as a product. All right, let's try one last example to make this video short. Let's try negative 20x to the fourth minus 50x squared. 20 and 50, you think about what do they have in common. They have 2. They both can be divisible by 2. They both could be divisible by 5. But the greatest common factor that they have is 10. So we're going to use 10. We can use negative 10 as well, or positive 10. Let's just use negative for now since they both have a negative. And then x to the fourth, x squared. They both have an x. And the highest amount of x's we can take out is 2. They both have at least 2 x's. Let's ask ourselves, what do we multiply negative 10 times what to give you negative 20? So that would be a 2. Negative 10 times 2. These answers are gathered if you divide these two. So negative 20 divided by negative 10 is 2. X squared divided by x to the fourth divided by x squared is x squared. Or again, you can multiply x squared times x squared gives you x to the fourth. So it's just a matter of seeing the multiplication of these two gives you that answer, or seeing it as this answer divided by this factor gives you this other factor. All right, so negative 10 times positive 5 will give you negative 50, and then x squared times nothing gives you x squared. So that results in that one. All right, so I hope this short video helps you review how to GCF. You're going to need it in future examples.